Good morning. How we doing, everybody? Welcome to this fine Monday deluxe edition of the Premarket Prep session. Hope everybody had a great weekend, restful, restorative, safe weekend, and you're ready to hit the ground running today. Ready to take advantage of the opportunity that the market, may have teed up for us. As always, I'm your host, Adam Holland, stock options expert market strategist. We're here to go over and lay the groundwork for and give the exposition for what we expect out of the week. You always want to control what you can control, and that's setting the groundwork, setting the lay of the land, saying, okay, this is what we have going on this week, especially during earnings week, because that's where it's even more important to know what you have happening. So make sure you check out my Instagram story. I've got the earnings calendar thrown up there for this week. We've got a lot of names reporting. Of course, one of the most valuable companies and one of the most transformative companies the world has ever seen, Apple, is reporting this week. So we've got, kind of the rock star of earnings season that will be giving us their report card. So all eyes will surely be there. But like I said, hope everybody had a great weekend. Hope you're having a great morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. And I'm getting ready to dive in, right? What else? We're here to go to work this morning. We want to talk about the week ahead, but we also want to discuss our Monday morning specific news. Saw a lot of headlines, right? A lot of kind of war related headlines over the weekend that just were not fun. Iran's giving out these warnings, that if the U.S. keeps quote unquote playing around, essentially you'll get pulled into this whole situation, talking about what's going on with the war in Gaza. So we just got tensions escalating. I just think that tensions are really the highest that they've been in my lifetime, to be completely honest. They've never been higher with China. They've never been higher with Russia. And now they've never been higher with the Middle East, right? Never. So it's just, we've got all-out war, ground assault pushing further into Gaza by Israel. So just tons and tons of stuff going on where it's not only on a single front, right? Every once in a while, tensions will flare up with China, and tensions will flare up with, it'll be one entity at a time. But now it's all of them, right? All of them we have tensions flaring up with, which just isn't good. It's something that we can't prevent. I can't. Personally, I think if you're a politician who wants to edge on war, then you need to go and be certified, and trained, and then you need to go on the front line. That should be a requirement. If you want to go send people to war, then you should be required to take up arms and go out there and be on the front lines. Otherwise, there's no way that you can accurately, make decisions based off of the sacrifice that war entails, right? So that's just my 2 cents. But it's important to keep track of this stuff, again, because it lays the land. So if something does happen, you're not oh man, this is coming out of nowhere. It's okay, this has been building for a bit. What is my plan in order to take advantage of this, right? We saw gold start to moon last week before close on Friday, likely in response to the ground invasion taking place. So, there are things that go on the move. There are things that push, during wartime. And it's important to kind of do your research and take your looks around and say, okay, what is something that, kind of classically happens during times of conflict, but also what are some new things that, may be happening that you can take advantage of, right? Because at the end of the day, I can't stop a war, I can't do anything, but I can make sure that in the case of wartime, my family is fed, right? At the end of the day, if you want to spend all of your time thinking about horrible things and existential threats to humanity and what's morally right, morally wrong, you'll think yourself into a coma, right? But at the end of the day, I've got these people are in my life, they mean something to me, I need to provide for them. That's really where our jurisdiction ends as kind of normal people. So figure out what you can do for those around you, take care of that, right? And operate, with that in mind. But with that being said, let's dive into what we got going on here with our top news for the week ahead. So investors have a busy week ahead with the Federal Reserve set to meet on Wednesday. That's one big thing. The Fed is widely expected to leave the target federal funds rate unchanged at 5.25 to 5.5%. Seeking Alpha analyst Demir Tokic said current economic data doesn't support the case for maintaining rates, adding the S&P 500 index could negatively respond to the pause if 10-year yields spike above 5%. Meanwhile, investing group leader Shareholders Unite detailed why the thesis of immaculate disinflation holds, but flagged the risks of the Fed over tightening and surging bond yields. Markets will also closely watch the employment numbers due next week. the ADP jobs update, the JOLTS report, non-farm payrolls data, and the Challenger jobs job cuts report for further clues on how the economy is progressing. Now, in terms of the earnings spotlight, right, and let's pull up our Market Watch economic calendar as well, just to double check whatever else we got going on here. Looks like Monday, nothing scheduled. Tuesday, we have consumer confidence at 10 a.m. That's important. So tomorrow we will get something important during market hours at 10 a.m. Wednesday, ISM manufacturing at 10 a.m. Construction spending, kind of random things on Wednesday. But at 9:45, we do get PMI and US manufacturing PMI. So Tuesday and Wednesday at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, 9:45 a.m. on Wednesday, we get data. Right, it's not crazy data, but it is important. It's data that we've, found out through experience will have impact, at least short term, more likely than not on price action. So 10 a.m. 10 a.m. on Tuesday, 9:45 a.m. on Wednesday. Both are shortly after market close. And typically on days like that, we can get some kind of weird movement, after open. The market might wait for that data to drop. On Thursday, we get initial jobless claims at 8:30 a.m., so that's before market open. That's the biggest thing. Then Friday, we get unemployment data at 8:30 and non-farm payrolls. Then we get S&P U.S. Services PMI at 9:45. So it's really right after market open on Tuesday, right after market open on Wednesday, Thursday before market open, Friday before market open. So that's kind of what we're looking at in terms of like economic data being dropped. So a lot of reports, right? A lot of data, a lot of earnings. This can be a difficult week, right? It can be a week, all earnings weeks, because the market is just waiting for so much. We've got the Fed speaking. We've got big earnings. We've got multiple pieces of data that are dropping over the course of the week. So there's a lot to juggle, right? There's a lot to juggle. And we'll still be able to seek out, good quality opportunities. But it's one of those things, again, where you're not going, you're not going crazy throwing 100% of your buying power into positions, right? You're just not doing that this week. That's not the way to go about things. In terms of earnings news, Monday, October 30th, we've got McDonald's, Pinterest, Transocean, and SoFi. Let me see here, since I have that picture saved on my phone. We'll see what we have before market open. So before open, we've got SoFi, McDonald's. Those are kind of the biggest ones. And then after close, we've got Pinterest. So those are probably the most important names that we have reporting. And then on Tuesday, we've got before open Pfizer, Caterpillar, JetBlue, Amgen, BP, and then Marathon, right? Marathon Oil. And then after close on Tuesday, we've got AMD, right? A huge household name. We've got AMD, and that's really the only big one after hours on Tuesday. There's First Solar, which if I had to guess probably wouldn't do well based off of how the rest of Solar is doing. We've got First Solar, which is FSLR, something that we've traded before. That might be an interesting one to look at, right, and to keep in mind, because solar has been getting destroyed. So if you've got some profits, you can feel, fine, okay, I'll take a little YOLO on earnings, just like we did on Snap. Didn't work out well on Snap, right? Got cooked on those, but that's why you only take profits. You understand that it's a YOLO and that it's high risk, and as I always say, you don't play it if you wouldn't flush that money down the toilet. But FSLR is one of those. We're just looking at the solar landscape, right? They've been struggling. And the solar ETF TAN had, it was squeezing really tight, right? I think it was like a symmetrical triangle, and then that broke down over the course of the past few months. That was something that we were watching some months ago. So if you kept tabs on that, those puts have paid quite nicely, because solar has been getting a good old shellacking. In terms of Wednesday earnings news, we've got Norwegian Cruise Line, CVS Health, Humana, Wayfair, Kraft Heinz, let's see, Generac before open. So all those are reporting before open. Then after close, we've got PayPal, Roku, Qualcomm, Solar Edge, some more solar companies, Airbnb, and Etsy, as well as Mercado Libre, Albemarle, right, on the lithium front. So we've got Apple on Thursday. That's going to be the big one, right? Apple, Block, DraftKings, Carvana, Starbucks, Coinbase, right? So we've got a lot of big names reporting Thursday after the bell. Yeah, Block, also Square, right? The company formerly known as Square. Friday, we've got Fubo TV. Let's see here. Anything else important? Not really. Cinemark, Dominion Energy. Yeah, nothing really important on Friday, but those are all before open on Friday. So we got a packed little earnings schedule coming up this week. So make sure that you're aware of that. You understand what's happening there, and that you're all good on that front. Let's see what else we have going on in terms of news here. I don't know why the newsletter just blanked out, but let me see if I can pull it up. Okay. Okay, so what else do we have going on the week ahead? Conferences, not really any important conferences happening currently. Oh, there we go. We're back. So in terms of the conference schedule, not really anything important happening in terms of conferences that are going on, or really any other things besides earnings that are happening this week. So now we can go and just check on our news for Monday specifically. So we definitely have a packed schedule happening this week, right? We've got a super packed schedule happening this week. We'll make sure that we stay on top of that. But if you got a little dry erase calendar, which I'm a big fan of, having that in your office or wherever you are, just make sure you have this stuff written up, right? And you set whatever corresponding alerts that you might need to. I'm a big reminder guy. I'm a big alerts guy. If I need to remember something, I'm going to tell Alexa, right? I'm going to tell Siri. I'm going to set multiple reminders. Do whatever you need to do to make sure that you're on top of that stuff as we go throughout the week. Now, while I wait for the newsletter to load on here, I'm going to go ahead and just rip it from the phone. So in terms of our top news on Monday, fiscal health, this week's FOMC announcement on interest rates would typically be the big name event for investors, but not this time around. While a Fed hike in December is up for debate, no one expects the central bank to raise rates this week, especially given recent economic data. Tightening financial conditions, the cautious tone of policymakers, and global geopolitical uncertainty. Instead of the FOMC decision, another headline on Wednesday will draw the attention of the market as the U.S. struggles with big debt problems and climbing yields that continue to make servicing that debt more expensive. Now, in terms of refunding announcement, to satisfy the federal government's borrowing needs, the U.S. Treasury Department sells many types of bonds that span the popular 2-year, which is U.S. 2Y, 10-year U.S. 10Y, and 30-year U.S. 30Y in securities. Floating rate notes, inflation-linked bonds, and other types of debt with differing maturities. It's pretty much just how the government funds all the stuff that it's looking to do, right? They do it by selling all of these different, securities to fund their borrowing needs. Now, every quarter, the Treasury details its menu of debt that it's planning on issuing in what is known as the quarterly refunding statement. Investors have recently taken a renewed interest in the announcement given the volatility in the Treasury market and what it means for other sectors of investment and the broader economy. Heavy borrowing by the Treasury has been a big factor behind the recent run-up in long-term yields, which last week hit their highest levels since the financial crisis in 2007. Other types of spending and tax revenue shortfalls have also added to the national debt, which doubled in the fiscal year through September and now stands at nearly $34 trillion. The Fed's most aggressive tightening of monetary policy in decades has prompted further worries over the amount of borrowing, with Fitch stripping the U.S. of its AAA sovereign rating before the last Treasury refunding announcement in August, citing factors like an expected fiscal deterioration and growing debt burden. In terms of issuance composition, supply and demand will be in focus during this week's refunding announcement, given the recent volatility in the Treasury market. Will longer-term debt sales be ramped up to fund a widening federal deficit, or will there be a greater reliance on short-term bills due to the recent surge in yields? On the demand side, treasuries remain one of the safest places on the planet, but the auctions have become increasingly resilient on hedge, pension, and mutual funds to scoop up large quantities of bonds as foreign governments and U.S. banks reduce their purchases, including the Federal Reserve. So bond talk is never really fun. It's not sexy talk, but it's something that, it's kind of necessary. You don't need to be deep into the bond market in order to do well trading, but it's something that's kind of like a nice plus just because you can, trade those as well. All these different things have different ETFs and ways for you to play them. So it just provides more opportunity. But at the end of the day, if you're not somebody who's like beating down the door to learn about bonds, it's not going to stop you from doing well trading normally, right? That's kind of how I see it, because I'm not a big bond aficionado myself. In terms of automotive news, Auto Mess, after recently ratifying a new 3-year labor contract with General Motors and Ford, Canadian labor union Unifor said that, more than 8,200 workers have gone on strike at Stellantis' facilities in Canada as negotiators failed to reach an agreement before Sunday's midnight strike deadline. The walkouts in Canada come close on the heels of Stellantis and the United Auto Workers Union in the U.S. reaching a tentative deal to put an end to a strike that began in September. Ford may also see its American labor woes end soon, with local UAW leaders approving its record tentative deal. But GM is still under pressure as the UAW expanded its strike to the firm's Tennessee engine factory, its largest facility in North America. So we're still dealing with this, strike issue in the auto industry. We've been talking about strikes and all of that and unionization mounting for the past year and a half, right? It continues to spread across different sectors, and it's only kind of augmenting that unionization, that unionization is being augmented by the rise of artificial intelligence, because people are getting more and more scared that AI is going to completely replace them and do it a lot sooner than what was anticipated. So I just saw a headline that the Biden administration is planning on making a big announcement about AI regulation. Not sure what that entails. I don't know when that will happen, but I just thought that was pretty significant. I know some people in the Hill are going to hit them up, see what that announcement is looking like. But I thought that was really important, especially given the fact that we've got AMD reporting this week. We've got NVIDIA reporting this week, right? I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that entails. It might be more hyped up, than it is anything that's palpable, but pretty crazy. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But, I don't think it's coincidence that they're announcing this right as these companies are reporting earnings as well. In terms of energy news in the crosshairs, Truist analyst Neil Dingman has listed 3 potential oil and gas acquisition targets with very good inventory as consolidation continues in the energy sector. By consolidation, we mean all these oil and gas companies are like buying other oil and gas companies so that they can consolidate, become stronger, right? Weather the secular, trends, which is kind of oil going down and fossil fuels going down and then green energy going up. His predictions come as ConocoPhillips, ticker COP, is considering a takeover bid for privately held Permian Basin oil producer Crown Rock, while Devon Energy, ticker DVN, is also exploring a similar offer. Quote, you have a host of large independents that potentially would like to get bigger and add more inventory, said Dingman, highlighting some additional suitors. He also prefers Exxon's, ticker XOM's, their deal to buy Pioneer Natural Resources over Chevron, ticker CVX's Hess Corp takeover, which he called, quote, kind of odd. Now, in terms of tech news, scary fast, Apple is set to unveil a new version of its Mac computer tonight as its Scary Fast event, a nod to Halloween. The segment represents about 10% of Apple's yearly revenue, and the event will likely see refreshed MacBook Pro laptops and iMac desktops with Apple's first M3 3nm processors, which are expected to be more powerful than its M2 line. Apple's Macs have been facing increased competition for performance power in the wake of Qualcomm's new CPU and NVIDIA's ARM-based PC chips. Apple will also post Q4 results on Thursday, the first earnings report since the launch of the iPhone 15, which is not faring well commercially. You mean your only selling point being titanium isn't something that's absolutely overtaking the hearts of the American public? Who would have thunk it, right? Absolutely ridiculous. Tell me what the heck the phone does instead of telling me what it's made out of, which doesn't make me know never mind, as my great-grandpa would say, right? In terms of, Apple with events, how those events go. Typically ends up being a sell the news type of thing for Apple. Apple can maybe push up to the event, but, as the event happens, we tend to see some selling on Apple. In terms of today's markets, don't know if this is still accurate, right, as time has gone on, but we're looking mostly green here. Not a huge surprise after all the red that we saw last week, but we've got in Asia, Japan, we're down 1%, but Hong Kong is flat. China is up 0.1, so marginally. India up 0.5. London, we're up 0.8. Paris up 0.8. Frankfurt up 0.6. The Dow up 0.5. S&P up 0.6. NASDAQ up 0.8. Crude oil down 1.3%. Gold up 0.3%. And then Bitcoin up 1.1% to 34,537. Now, in terms of what else is happening, I thought it was important too. I think Coinbase is reporting this week. Did I see that? I believe Coinbase might be reporting this week, which is kind of significant as well. Do we have it? I'm not seeing it, but I can check. Yeah, they are. Thursday. Yeah, Thursday after the close, which I think we talked about, they report. So Coinbase, right, might be another one to keep your eye on in the wake of Bitcoin, getting above a pretty important technical level there in 32K and closing above it last week. So in terms of what else is happening, we'll finish up with our, major stock news bullet point rundown to close us out. Google commits $2 billion to OpenAI rival Anthropic. So Google and Microsoft now really the two biggest names in terms of committing tons of money to AI, and AI that's already pretty robust. HSBC profit more than triples in Q3, $3 billion stock buyback plan. Kazakhstan nationalizes ArcelorMittal, ticker MT unit, after fire at mine. Evergrande gets last chance to avert liquidation. I feel like they've been given their last chance like month after month after month. Citi explores a Disney trade-off, ABC and India for Hulu. Pharma, PBMs spar over rising drug costs amid public scrutiny. Pfizer, ticker PFE, to shut down 2 North Carolina facilities due to cost cuts. Boeing, ticker BA, assessing ransomware from Lockbit hackers. And then Kazakhstan fears weigh on Chevron. Exxon faces merger skeptics. And credit card metrics roughly at pre-pandemic levels. What's ahead? So let's see. It looks like there's also a correction. It says Wall Street Breakfast last Friday wrote that, quote, crypto research firms Elliptic and BitOk estimated the Gaza-based terror groups had raised over $130 million in crypto since May of 2021, including $41 million by Hamas and $93 million by Palestinian Islamic Jihad. These figures were based on wallets seized by Israel's National Bureau for Counter-Terror Financing, but Elliptic noted in a statement that in, quote, no way does this mean that PIJ had raised all of these funds or that even all belong to PIJ. It is not known what portion of the funds received by those wallets are directly attributable to Palestinian Islamic Jihad or other terrorist groups. So it seems like they kind of had to, release that. They had to release that disclaimer in the wake of probably what ended up being a lot of backlash, right? I mean, this is a very highly contested issue from both sides, right? This Israel and Palestinian conflict, this Israel-Gaza conflict, this Israel and everyone, in terms of its neighbors conflict. So, yeah, I guess they had to walk that back, but it is true. It's kind of like, who knows, right? It's freaking crypto wallets. But at the end of the day, if they made that statement, they want to walk it back, I'll throw out any disclaimers as well. But yeah, guys, we're diving into another week. We've got plenty of stuff going on this week. We've got plenty of earnings names that are reporting. That means plenty of post-earnings trade opportunities. I'm excited to look forward to what we got going on. I'm excited to get after it and execute. As always, let's make sure we have a great week. And yeah, I'll see you guys back here tomorrow morning, right, for our second pre-market prep session of the week. Have a good one.